Coming up on International Trade Focus,
we shall feature a national policy dialogue organized by the Women in Mining Ghana and partners. Now, so as part of March being International Women's Month, we are still throwing more light on the activities of women making a mark in various sectors on the international trade arena. On today's edition of International Trade Focus, we shall feature a national policy dialogue organized by the Women in Mining Ghana and partners to discuss key gender issues confronting women in the participation in mining industry. International Trade Focus is brought to you by Gold Good Energy, ADV Truly Agri and More, Public Elegance, and Pediasi Valley Resort. So this week's edition of International Trade Focus features a national policy dialogue organized by Women in Mining Ghana to discuss key issues that pertain to women's access in the mining sector in the country. Here are some panel discussions that transpired at the National Policy Dialogue.
We are going to talk about the challenges with gender inclusion from industry perspective, and then barriers to women involvement in ASM sector, and then some of the concerns that the women living in mining communities have regarding mining activities in their communities. We have panel members from different regions in Africa here. I would like to start with Madam Zenzi and for her to tell us some of the safety concerns that women working in the mining industry are facing, specifically from the Africa context, and how they differ from what their male counterparts are experiencing, like the unique safety concerns that women in the mining industry are facing.
So the dangers in mining is gender. It's not gender sensitive, so it's not specific to a gender. But one of the biggest things that I believe are facing women in mining is the fact of their PPE. And I'll tell you why. The PPE is designed in a way that is made for a man. So especially in Southern Africa, I know here things are changing a little, but you're getting outfits that are made for a woman. So in where I come from, the PPE is designed for a man, so it's usually much bigger. Now, so it defeats the purpose of it being a safety gear. So now you face the possibility of your overall getting stuck in a conveyor belt, for example. Your shoes are usually much bigger because there's no a safety boot designed for a woman. So you're gonna wear a size at least 1 or 2 bigger just to fit in, into the shoe, and that's already another. It's a tripping hazard. The one that is most prevalent, and then that links to sexual harassment, is the fact that the pants are made with the male physique in mind. So what then happens is, with women, we're a little bit wider. Whether you're a small woman or a bigger one, your waist here is much wider than a man's. So what will then happen is you are wearing a much tighter pair of jeans or pair of overalls than your male colleague. What happens then? You attract unnecessary attention, which then eventually leads to sexual harassment, whether it is seen or not. But that usually is one of the biggest. So it's subtle yet very important.
What she's saying is very true. I have spent the past 35 years on various mines. First working as an employee, and then an employer, doing work for mining companies. And when you go, you're immediately kitted.
Mm-hmm.
To put on your kit. And my shoe size is size 3.
Yeah.
So I just decided to buy my own boots.
Yes.
So wherever I'm going, I have my own boots, I have my own overall, I have my own everything. It's the only way. Otherwise, as you're saying, it's very unsafe.
Yeah.
because you can trick over.
Okay.
I think this is something we women we can take up and start designing.
Correct.
Safety wears for women specific to.
So I've partnered with a designer, a fashion designer, who's also in the industry. And we said, look, we are, there's no way that a man, because once we raised this issue, they would go and say, oh, okay, do you want your PPE to be tightened on your back so it shows off your waist? Or do you want a pink PPE? So we can't have a male designing the PPE for us. So we, Getty is designing currently outfits that works in the military, because the military has actually adjusted some of the uniforms for females, and still it can be a safe, an outfit to wear. Same with the shoes. Meet up with whoever is designing those safety boots and say, can you take into account a woman's foot, an African woman's foot also, big difference there.
Key aspect of the research that was done focused on the socio-cultural issues facing that causes women to experience challenges in the mining industry. I'm trying to put everything together, the biases, our social, the way our African or Ghanaian societies are set up, which in a way may seem to favor men than women, and translate into the mining industry, which goes into the gender discrimination and harassment, the insensitive working environment, to not finding jobs, the unconscious biases like, oh, women should rest, it's men who should be working in the mining industry and all of that. I want opinions from all the members because I believe this is something that cuts across all industries. So I want opinions from all the panel members. Share your sector-specific experiences about that particular situation. How unconscious biases, cultural, societal influences affecting women in your space that you are working in?
Yes, the unconscious biases are the traditional perception of a woman's role being in the kitchen or being in the home really persists, and we find that this acts as an inhibiting factor for women participation, not just in mining, but then across all sectors of the economy. And this issue of cultural bias has to be addressed. And as the report suggested, one key way of addressing it will be through sensitization. We have a long way to go in terms of addressing cultural biases in our society, because culture is something that is in us, we believe in it, and changing these requires a lot of effort. Right from our traditional authorities, right from I'm talking with respect to even from the Ministry of Culture and then Chieftaincy, and then the NCCE. So some of these sensitizations must come from these sectors to be able to get people to really understand the impact of culture on our economic activities in our various fields of work. Unfortunately, within our sector, when you go into the ASM subsector, for instance, we really find this issue at play. Recently, we were on the field and this issue of myths came up, and we were speaking to a male concessionaire, and he was like, yes, it's true. When a woman has his menses or his monthly flow, we do not want them on our side because that's our belief that it affects the gold find within as to whether there's no scientific proof to these issues. But unfortunately, we've accepted it. It's become a part of us and would require more from us as individuals, those of us who have, through education, we've learned that some of these things do not really work or do not really exist, to also educate those who do not know, so that they can appreciate that, yes, if we're able to address some of these cultural biases or knowledges that we have that we've taken on board over the years, we'll move a step up on addressing some of the biases within our various sectors.
The issue of sociocultural discrimination based on gender, I think it varies from, let's say, the large-scale mining sector relative to the small-scale sector. And because of their presence or how they tend to occur, the kind of solutions that you want to offer may also not be about the same.
Yeah.
So let me just start with the large scale, where I'm quite familiar with. Generally, the kind of sociocultural-based gender discrimination that you will find, it's more about the individual. It's quite personal. Our biases that we have as men, for instance, we will carry that into the workplace, and that feeds into the decisions that we are going to make within the workspace. But fortunately, there is a remedy for that. Because it's a very formal institution, there are structures for trying to curb those things. Of course, we've not been able to resolve that fully, but it's something that is still work in progress. So for instance, if I think that this role should not go for a woman, for instance, a woman can't do this role, the system will compel me to make sure that I give the woman an equal opportunity. I can start a very live example. When we started the National Assay Program with PMMC, we needed to send women to the gold room. And for those of us that are very familiar with the gold room, it's a place that typically women don't go because of the furnace, because of the heat and all of that. So they did not have changing rooms for women and all of that. Then suddenly PMMC caused the chamber to say, oh, we are posting a woman to this mine. Of course, the chamber obliged by informing the mine that a woman will be coming to your gold room. Then the mine calls back to say, sorry, we don't have changing rooms for women. There are no female security officers that can take care of the female officers that are coming. Then we insisted, okay, make sure you have all of those facilities for the woman to be able to do the job she has to do. And the mine complied. But unfortunately, all the women left that job because the men married them. So PMC stopped posting their women to our gold rooms these days. So it's still a men affair. But that's a classic example of a barrier we have. But of course, the system is able to cure that barrier because of the structures that you have in there. Then when it comes to the small scale sector, again, it's not a uniform thing. It depends on where you find yourself. I work quite closely with Gloria, Jobia, and Co. And I've moved around a bit from region to region. So for instance, when you go to the northern part of the country, where mining is predominantly underground, the myth is that a woman can't go underground. Until date, it still remains. A woman will not go underground. So the kind of work that the woman will do will determine how much you are paid. It's largely a vulnerable employment. So they are the very, very tail end of the production process where payments are very, very low. Indeed, when the gold is crushed into a powdery form, you get a scoop of a bowl or whatever it is. That's your payment. But when a man goes down, he carries the bag. They call it, they get to it, or they call it the load. The load is shared in a certain proportion, and that becomes yours. So just by the way the job is distributed, it impacts on your earnings as well. And again, it's because of our social-cultural biases that we have. If you go to the southern part and the central part of the country, it's different. It's more surface mining. So a woman is able to participate in the processing of the gold. So generally, you find that there is fairly equity in terms of the revenue that you are going to earn. But because it's an informal structure, when you're going to give a response to that problem, it's more of a moral suasion argument, or policy may try, but it's more about sensitizing them to be able to do it. So that's how I want us to look at it.
I want to approach it more from the quantitative side of it. One of the solutions, one thing is for sure that there is something being done about it, right? It's taking long, but there is something being done about it. And one of the things that's been done about it, I'm not sure if it's been done here I couldn't take that from the study, but the quota system was mentioned. Now, the quota system is a great solution, but with that comes its own problems stemming from unconscious bias. Now, the quota system is an answer to diversity, because if you apply the quota system, you're going to have more females because legislation says so. In South Africa it's been done, in Namibia it's been done, but it lacks inclusion. So I'm a very big, this unconscious bias talk is very, very personal to me, because as Furora and any female geologist will tell you, we were usually the pioneers. I was the only female for 5 years on a camp in the desert of Namibia exploring for diamonds. And same as you were mentioning just now, when I arrived there, I was told, wait in the truck while we prepare the men that you are here. Yeah. And you could hear them, where will she shower? the company complied and said, look, we need to have more female exploration geologists. We sent it to school. I arrived there, but automatically, because they had no choice, because I'm 200 kilometers away from the town I was coming from, they had to construct a toilet and a shower for me, right? And I was staying in a caravan facing the other side of the of the camp. But so the quota system, so now they are very sensitive around me, we have to make sure that she's safe and whatever. Then comes the unconscious bias that basically says that even myself had to apply myself to this thing. And the barrier I placed up around myself was because my colleague, I remember bumping into him on my way to a conference, and he stops me and he asks me, Senzi, where are you going to? I said, no, I'm going to be speaking at the mining in Daba. And then he asked, what are you talking about? And I said, gender equality. So George says to me, well, he says, but as an African man, I don't understand this gender equality talk. And I had to stop him and ask him, when we were studying together at the same university, did you see me as an African woman, or as a female, or as a member of this field that we're going into? What I'm trying to get at is that this unconscious bias thing is real. Yeah. When I eventually left the mining industry, full-time employment to go and consult, now I'm employing men. Do you know that I would, because of the societal norm, I would literally sit back and make myself small when a man is addressing me, to a point where I have to say something is wrong here, because he would automatically give me instructions, and I'm the boss. You see what I mean? Yeah. Because now in culture you have to respect a man, and it's so subtle, but it is there. And I would, after a while, I'm like, hey, did he just tell me off and I'm the boss? And there's nothing wrong with it. So it is something that we have to consciously address. Lastly, I want to just say also that unconscious bias, if not dealt with, it will remain the biggest barrier to us achieving equality. It has to be dealt with internally from us. We have to be the ones advising the government, and through continuous advocacy can we achieve that. Through continuous advocacy through dialogues like these, can we actually highlight why it's important to address that?
Because it's through hard work and knowledge. However, because of the biases, immediately they think, oh, somebody, excuse me, slept with her, that's why she's here. And that is what we have to deal with day in and day out. I remember in 1997, I won a bid to run a program for the Ghana Chamber of Mines for the Responsible Care Program. And my company competed with two very strong companies, Channel 2, David Ampofo, and Media Magic, Gedilai. And my company won Rapport Services. Why? Because I had worked with the mining industry since 1988. So I knew everything about the mining industry. So I could put in a proposal that they identified with. They gossip, and this were amongst women, that, oh, the consultant, who was an old Englishman, had slept with me. That's why I got it. But it didn't bother me. That's one thing that we have to realize. Yeah. If it is not true, don't let it bother you. And if it's true, so what? Is it your concern? So let us be strong, because it will always come. I keep saying that the fact that you're a woman is a fact. So if you're walking before a man, he will see your curves and he will try and make approaches to you. I mean, if you like him, fine. If you don't, tell him, I don't like you. Yeah. It's simple as that. Sometimes we put ourselves in a box and we start fearing, oh, this man, it was going to do. No. Because if you rape somebody in Ghana, you'll be jailed. Yeah. It's in the law. So we have to be brave and face our difficulties, because it will be there forever. As long as there are men and women, it will be there. Yeah. And I keep saying, as long as we are men, there are men and there are women, these things will happen. Yeah. So we have to be strong enough to face them.
Right, if you just tuned in, you're watching International Trade Focus, and we're bringing you highlights from the National Policy Dialogue organized by the Women in Mining Ghana. There's more highlights after this break. Don't go away. A warm welcome back. You're watching International Trade Focus. Now, this week's episode features a national policy dialogue organized by women in mining Ghana to discuss pertinent issues that women in the extractive sector are confronted with. Also speaking as the national policy dialogue organized by the women in mining Ghana was the Minister of Lands and Natural Resources, Honorable Abu Jinapo. Here are some more highlights.
And participation of women in the sector's governance, low representation of women in C-suite roles, and then lack of effective leadership and mentorship. So I want to any of the panel members who want to address this particular question. We don't want to look at the challenge. The challenge has already been. What do you think we can do to address this particular the issue of leadership? How do we get more women into C-suite roles? How do we address the lack of effective leadership and mentorship? So,
the first counter challenge that comes back to us when we advocate for female leadership is, you are power hungry. No, it's not a case of us being power hungry. And so what, as Auntie just said, if we are you not hungry for power? But the most important part is we need to be up there. If we don't have female leadership in decision-making roles, how else will you know how to address the issue? Let's take the PPE, for example. Very simple, but a very key one. For years, men, because of diversity, we came into the industry. But for years, until recently, nobody bothered to ask, is that PPE safe for a woman to wear? One of the key things that came out of the study was the whole talk around maternity. Do we want men to write policies around maternity if they don't understand why a woman needs to be at home for at least 6 months? So this is why we need female leadership. Now, the approach should be, as the female, when you get up there, are you prepared for that uncomfortable discussion? Because, believe me, it is hot up here. When you are sitting with line ministers, CEOs, and all of that to discuss issues that are uncomfortable, you yourself, and I don't ascribe to you must grow a thick skin. No. My skin is soft enough. You have to be strong enough to face those challenges. So that's the thing. And a lot of times, women, when they get up there, they have this what I call this fake sense of promised land. I've made it. And then you don't want to send the elevator down to the next female because you want to be the first female leader, the first female this is that. So rather, and that it's basically another result of unconscious bias because of unconscious bias, I want to be part of the men's club, so I'll keep it. No, once we, Georgette said you need to have numbers together. So explain to the men through all of these dialogues why we need to be up there, and then make your way up there without being scared of it.
For us to, or for women to be in that leadership role, I'll use the Commission as an example, for instance. The Commission has about over 22%, let's say close to 30% female participation or female employees. But then we find that when you do the gender disaggregated, you find that most of the females in there, we are in the support services role. I'm not saying it's bad, no, it's not bad. When you go further up, in the leadership role, women are very few. The women leaders in there are very few. Speaking to HR as to how best we can address such a problem, to be able to have women in the leadership, in the key managerial positions and directorship positions. One solution that came out was being conscious for us to train the women, train people to have the requisite skills, not just the technical skills, but even the managerial skills, to be able to speak to the issues, to identify the issues and then speak to them at that high-level table. And so for commission, for instance, training is ongoing. Women are equally benefiting from these trainings. And I believe that with the local content and regulations that we have in the sector, which also looks at companies' training in terms of their training and recruitment practices is gender inclusive. Through these initiatives, training programs are organized for women. Females that have the requisite skills are identified at the company level. Let's give them the requisite skills that they need so that we prepare them. We don't wait for the position to come, but then let's prepare people ahead so that when the position comes, because already the positions are filled by males or by persons, we can't just say because we need a female, we should just move A or B. No, that wouldn't be fair. That would also create another problem of discrimination. However, when we prepare ahead so that when the opportunity comes, that female who has that skill is there to be either to be poached or to apply and compete competently with his or with her male colleagues in the company. Thank you.
Getting to management is a pathway, right? You need to start from somewhere before you get there. And there are certain specific people who can be in management. For instance, in Ghana, management must consist of what we call ticket holders. So if you are like a mine manager, you must have a ticket from the Minerals Commission to qualify as that. If you are going to rise to a GM, there are certain caliber of people or professions, let me put it that way, that are allowed to be general manager. I, as an economist, can't be a general manager of a mine by law. A lawyer can't be a general manager of a mine by law. You have to be either a mining engineer or one of those mining-related disciplines. So then the question then becomes, where are women within this particular space? The last week, Mona and I we're just looking at the numbers. So for instance, you find out that for every job description that you find at a mine, a man is more likely to be older than a woman for every job description. 2, for the same job description, a man is more likely to be qualified than a woman. Where they have the same level of qualification, that's on the average, then it means that the man also has the same level of qualification. But on the whole, we tend to find out that the men were more qualified than the women. Then when it comes to the skills-related job, or what we call the ticket-holding positions or the jobs, you find out again there are more men in those roles than the women. So naturally, it means that if it comes to progression, you tend to find the men more in the upper echelons of the position than the women. So the question then becomes, how do we get the women into those roles so that they can also rise to get to the management level? So what the chamber we tend to do now is that we have a scholarship program with the University of Mines. And what we do there is an affirmative policy. The university is required to admit 60% female and then 40% male when it comes to those related disciplines. And 2, most of the companies too now are putting in affirmative policies. I remember a VP role was created at the mine, and the overall boss of the company was instructed that make sure you get a woman for this job. So no matter the man's qualification, it was the woman that was given the job. Eventually the person had it. So again, that quota system that the multinational companies are bringing into the country is also helping. So I think both on the education front and both on the company policy front as well, those are the things that we are doing as a chamber, as companies, to help improve women participation at the C-suite level.
When I joined the Minerals Commission as a board member, one of the first things that we started discussing was, there's so many women in mining, we have a gender desk. So between 2017 and 2019, we were working on it. When I was a leader of this, and all my board members agreed with me, so that we have a gender desk. Melanie took over that, and she's done very well. She's all over the place, mentoring women and getting them in line and so on and so forth. It is important as women for us to be sympathetic towards our own and not feel that somebody's coming to compete with us. That is one of the biggest problems we have. And if we can overcome that and be able to join hands, we will make it. We need to support one another. It's very, very important. And stop dragging people down and so on and so forth. For example, Adobia, I'm in contact with her all the time. When I bring the women for training and so on, we have training in lapidary, training in jewelry making, and so on. And we've set it up so that the women can do other things than working the debt all the time. I mean, if you're in a certain space and you think women can help, improve themselves there or make a statement there, then invite them in. Please invite them in. Let us be flexible and be accommodating and acceptable as women. It will help us. Because sometimes the men always say, oh, they are their own enemies. We created that, saying, because it is true. As soon as the woman is there, the other is, they'll start making compromises, as we say. And then before you realize, the woman gives up, oh, why should I put up with this? And then she's off. Why? Let us support one another. Thank you.
When Madam Adubia was talking, she said, they in the ASM, we are trying to help the women. Even though the percentage is very high, they are at the bottom of the ladder in the ASM sector. So it's not every high percentage that's an indication of really getting good money or anything like that. And we know from social studies back in Genesis, finance, access to finance, that's a major issue for everybody, even the men, but more so for women in the ASM sector. So how do we correct that? We know the challenge is access to money. What can we do about it?
In finance, what we understand is what's on the table. In ASM, the major challenge we've always had is about the quality of data we are going to present to a financial institution. So for instance, if I want to go into small-scale mining, I'm required to do some basic geological investigation to know exactly what I have in my hands. We have an ongoing program with the World Bank where we are working with the Geological Survey Authority to be able to do some geological investigations for some of the small-scale miners. Perhaps, Mona, this is something that we can prioritize women participation in there, just be able to help them raise these monies as well. Two, we have a number of the development partners pumping money into the ASM space. Perhaps we could find the women-led organizations, let them come together as some cooperative, for instance, and then perhaps fund them, help them to do geological investigations, and on the basis of that, they could present that information to the bank to get enough money to be able to do the kind of projects that we want to do.
So one way of addressing some of these problems, and then again the financial challenge that's inhibiting women participation, effective women participation in ASM, is to bring women together, the ASM women together, find ways of helping them to form groups so that through the group we build their capacities. And then, as Chris mentioned, the World Bank project, we find ways of getting funding and then mineable lands for them to be able to effectively participate. That's something that myself and then Madam Adubia has engaged on. We are trying to find ways to bring them together. And I keep reassuring her that, or even say that, even if we're able to get 1 or 2 mineable area for women groups, would say it's a big achievement. And I'm glad the minister said the community mining scheme is an area that women should look at. So once we're able to come together, that's an area that we hope to penetrate, to be able to get women in there, and also give them because when you go around and even ask, especially dealing with those at the lower level, the kuli, we call them kuli people, they don't even they don't know the licensing procedure. They don't even know that women can own concessions. So these are some of the education that we are going around, educating women in that lower role, that yes, there are women out there who are owning concessions, who are doing a lot for themselves. So then again, they need to also refocus and then know that they can do something for themselves.
In terms of the legal and regulatory framework as well, the example that Florida used now of Niger, I think that's happening pretty much everywhere, where the encouragement is for females to enter the sector, and then a reduction is offered to a claim being given. But I think the challenge then comes in, once you've got the claim, are you adhering to the mining laws, such as environmental laws, for example? Are you adhering to the safety laws? Because at the end of the day, it is for mining. So once we start sharing more success stories like that, you will, I'm pretty sure you'll see an increase in participation.
We had a conversation with Madame Georgette Sechi Ado. She's the president of the Women in Mining Ghana. We discussed with her the importance of women's participation in the extractive industry and the relevance of public-private collaboration in pushing this agenda. Thanks for being a part of our program today. We'll first start by asking you what's the general significance or what the general input that the mining sector has in the country's economy.
I think that mining in general, Ghana has traditionally been a mining-focused country. Dating back to over 100 years ago, we were mining gold, and it is also the biggest contributor to forex in the economy. It creates jobs, and the jobs that it creates, we have direct, indirect jobs as well. And if we were to properly actually assess the whole mining value chain, I am sure our impact would even be much, much more, because sometimes we tend to concentrate a lot on just the direct job. So it's a very important driver of development for Ghana.
We know that there are very few women that are participating in the mining sector in the country. So what would you say are some of the challenges women face in terms of accessing even the sector in general?
I think that's one of the reasons why Women in Mining as an advocacy group really started. It's basically because of the lack of participation for women along the mining value chain. In the large-scale mining sector, we are currently making up 9% of the workforce, and so you can see that the numbers are really low. So there are lots of challenges. I would go into some of the challenges shortly, but in the artisanal and small-scale mining sector, the workforce is about 50% or maybe over, but more studies have to be done to look into that. But there again, you realize that even though there's so much participation, the participation in terms of economic power is very low. In terms of even leadership is even lower. So there are barriers. We can see that the access in that subsector is easier. So that's why you find out that there are more women in that make up the artisanal mining workforce, but not in terms of ownership. So for the large-scale mines, the studies that we have conducted have brought out issues of access to information, access to opportunities, access to finance, work-life balance issue, maternity protection issues. So these are now documented in the researches that have been carried out. And so it's not even just anecdotal anymore. So Ford Foundation has sponsored these research. These are things that we used to speak about, but now we've gone into the field, and the women themselves have spoken about it, have spoken about discrimination, unconscious, micro, mental, issues that make it that make it uncomfortable for them to work in the industry. And it means that we need to do some work. Why? Because there are several studies that have confirmed that when there's diversity in teams, companies do much better. McKinsey did a study in 2022. There's another study called Women Count 2022, which actually said that where the boards are diversified, companies tend to, with all situations, everything being equal, companies tend to make 16% more profit. Aren't we, as a country, looking to progress? We are looking to progress. So if diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, actions would help us improve the sector, I see why not. We are not saying that maybe you shouldn't employ men. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that there are women who can, do the jobs as well. So the mines, if possible, wherever possible, should give the opportunity for women's participation. Women's participation on entry, women's support, and access and inclusivity for those who are already there. And how do they help those who are ready to get into C-suite also together to be fully part of the mining value chain?
Right, now the 9% that you mentioned is obviously low, but I believe that since the inception of Women in Mining Ghana through advocacy and other initiatives, this is even like an improvement upon
Yes,
previous.
yes,
So,
this is an improvement.
yeah. So previously, what were the percentages?
Oh, we were doing 6%, I think. Yeah. Yeah, and this improvement is, I think, a collective effort from the Chamber of Mines, the Minerals Commission, and also especially the schools as well, who are training the young ladies as well to build the pipeline. Yeah, so it's a collective effort for us to have gotten here.
So for initiatives or for events or programs such as the National Policy Dialogue, what are you hoping to achieve by organizing some of these events and dialogues?
We are creating awareness about issues. We are creating awareness about the problems. We want action. We want if possible, regulations around the issue, because it is not something that will turn investors or companies away if you, as a country, you say that, I want you to employ more women. I want you to engage more women. I want you to do more for the women who are already there. These are not issues that will turn any investor away. The world is moving towards these issues anyway. And so we want, today was really a culmination of the gender mainstreaming project that we started over 2 years ago. And so, because we started from the community level, and now we've brought everything together at the national level. So luckily for us, we got the minister's attention, and he's very interested. So if the ministry and the regulator, the Minerals Commission, were here as well, the Chamber of Mines were here as well. So we are hoping that they will take this up. Women in Mining is just a small advocacy group. We do not have the power. We do not have the means. We're doing our little bit, creating awareness from senior high school through universities and supporting the women in the mines. But it's the bigger work needs to be done by the regulators.
For emphasis, how important would you say public-private involvement or collaboration is in championing a cause such as, getting more women to be involved in the mining sector?
It cannot be done by one sector. It cannot. The mining sector is a heavily regulated industry, especially the large-scale mining. It's heavily regulated. They do not take a step without government. So there's civil society, there's the private companies, their head offices, they are shareholders, all of that, but they move with government's guidance. So really, they look up to government, and I don't think it's really something that will deter them, because if the talent is there and talent can be grown, talent can be supported, I am sure that this is something that they would heavily and equally and support. There are lots of initiatives already anyway. On International Women's Day, Newmont launched a maternity lactating center, on one of the mines. Anglo Gold also did a similar thing on one of their mines. Ahafo has, I think they've pledged a 50%, Goldfields, I think 30%. So the mines are moving. They want to do it. So they need us as a country to do our bit. And unfortunately, it's not just about regulation. There's a mindset issue. I was telling another journalist that sometimes you go to the community, you're doing outreaches, and the girls themselves will tell you, when I grow up, I want to be a nurse. When I grow up, I want to be a teacher. because traditionally going into mining is not supposed to be us. But it's been proven that women are doing it. That's why we are saying that. And they are doing it and doing it quite well. And for me, this started really as an economic empowerment issue for me. Why not? I felt that women should be able to support families. So that's how it started. This advocacy started for me because I felt like young ladies should be able to have a job. And the mining sector was one such place that I knew that could actually, give them work, have regular salaries, good employment. And so for me, it's an economic empowerment issue for women who are lucky to have been born in Ghana, where we have gold, where we have lithium, where we have manganese, where we have bauxite, where we have diamond, we are lucky. So please.
Which is why faces and voices like yours are very crucial to this agenda. So you are doing exceptionally well. My final question, let me play the devil's advocate here. Being the president of Women in Mining Ghana, there's a school of thought, and you've touched on it briefly, there's a school of thought that would say perhaps this is not a field for women, and even the few women who might venture into it might not be as qualified as their male counterparts are. So in your position, the women that you've encountered, the women that you've dealt with when it comes to mining, when it comes to the extractive sector, would you say that they are well equipped to compete within the sector?
They are equipped, no matter what role they are playing. As geologists, as mining engineers, as I'm looking across the room, I see a mechanical engineer. She's a fitter. She goes under caterpillars. The lady in that dress with the leopard prints, you won't believe it if you go and see her under a caterpillar fixing it. When you look at your back right now, you have 2 geologists sitting there. 3, actually. There are mining engineers. The moderator was a mining engineer. We have the women, they are equipped. It's just the opportunity. It's just the opportunity. And mind you, before the ban on women's participation in the industry, there were women who were working in the coal mines in Europe. Women were working it. So it's not something new. Even in Ghana, there is a book called Ashanti by Professor Ayensu. One day I was looking through, just flipping, and I was looking at pictures of women, of people basically handling logistics. About 100 years ago, I looked at the pictures and I saw that those women, bare-chested, they were female. So it is a sector that really, and gold. Who are the consumers of gold when it's turned into jewelry? For example, if I'm taking Ghana, which is really gold-based, So businesses and opportunities along the mining value chain. I remember my grandmother with gold jewelry, they knew it, they understand it. So there are various roles that we can participate in, and they are qualified.
And that was Madame Georgette Sechi Ado, President of Women in Mining Ghana, discussing with us the relevance of getting more women to participate in Ghana's extractive sector. That does it for our in this segment. News and events comes up shortly. Don't go away. Thank you so much for being a part of International Trade Focus today. Join us same time next week for some more on international trade-related activities here in Ghana and beyond. International Trade Focus is brought to you by Gol, Good Energy, ADB, Truly, Agric, and more, Public Elegance, and Pediasi Valley Resort. Bye-bye.